my name is Carrie and welcome to my mid-year reading check-in, and let's go ahead and get started with the statistics for my reading. So these statistics were taken from the beginning of July. I have not included any books that I've read in July in these statistics, just to clarify like where these are coming from. I have read a total of 37 books, which is pretty good. I can't complain about that. Now, where have I gotten all of these books? 48% of them were from my local libraries, 8% of them were ARCs that I received. However, 44% of them are owned books, which I'm really happy to see. I am trying to make a dent in my own TBR both digitally and also physically. I think I may end up doing a video later this year on my digital TBR because, to be honest, I have realized that I have way too many books in terms of audiobooks and also ebooks. This is something I would like to take more of an initiative on, but small steps, we're trying our best. And for now, 44% is pretty good. Across those 37 books, I read a total of 10,342 pages. This is pretty low, which doesn't shock me because I have mainly been reading shorter books. I have some longer books planned for the second half of the year, so this might increase a little bit. But even on average, through the past few years, I think I have averaged out about like 30,000 pages, and I'm okay with that. Now let's look at the format that I read these books in. This year I was trying to read less audiobooks, and I have not succeeded in that. My audiobook percentage is 75% of my reading, which does not shock me. It is so easy for me to listen to audiobooks because I go on daily walks. I listen to audiobooks while cleaning, while doing work sometimes. So yeah, it's just a much simpler way for me to get in books. About 15% of my reading were physical books and 10% were ebooks. In terms of author background, this one has been different from previous years. Usually my averages are closer to each other than this, but this year I've been prioritizing some series reads that I think have affected this statistic. So author background, 62% of the authors that I've read from are white, 16% have been Asian, 5% have been Swana, 5% Latinx, 3% Black, and 2% Indigenous. My average rating is a 3.38. I am not surprised by this because I had a few months of pretty low average ratings in the 2s. This is one that we'll see if it ever really drastically increases or if maybe it will get worse. You never know. I am happy to say that I have read from 16 different countries. This means that I also met my goal of reading 12 books from countries outside of the US, the UK, and Canada, which I'm very happy with, and this was very easy in terms of what I was already reading. I have also read 5 translated works. My goal for the year was to read 6, so I'm very happy that I am doing so well at this in the first 6 months of the year. And the last thing is just that my top genre this year so far has been nonfiction. I'm pretty surprised by this because even though I wanted to read more nonfiction this year, I didn't actually think that it would be so easy for me to incorporate this into my reading. It has been going very well. Some other information that I want to talk about of things that I'm looking at in my reading journal. I do have a goal of reading 100 books this year. My Goodreads goal is currently set at 50. Just because 50 is easily attainable for me, so I set it lower so that I can then increase it through the year. I do think that 100 books is still feasible for me because one of my other goals is to participate in the Sealy Challenge. Even if I haven't finished the Sealy Challenge, I still usually get at least 20 poetry collections read. So that is something that will make it pretty easy for me to get close to 100 already. I'm also trying to write a review for every single book that I read this year. I did this last year and I really enjoyed that in terms of not only keeping a reading journal, but also tracking my reviews on Goodreads. I enjoyed this mainly because it connects me with a lot of people on Instagram and Goodreads who are interested in the same books or have read the same books, so they have thoughts on them. It's just a really nice thing to build community, and so I enjoy doing that, and I am going to continue that. I also want to increase my NetGalley ratio by 10%, which is a challenge because I have actually decreased it by 7% because of new books that I have requested. So I actually need to raise it by almost 20% now. I do have kind of a rough plan for this, especially with the Sealy Challenge, because many of the arcs that I have are for poetry. I'm hoping that that will help me in the end, but I don't know if that's actually going to be feasible now to get up to the percentage that I was originally hoping for. Now, the other thing is that I have been co-hosting a book club this year, and the books are selected from members. January through April, I did read the books and finish them. March, I ended up DNFing the book. June, I never even started the book. We skip July and August because most people are traveling during this time, but soon we are going to be deciding the books for September through December, and I am hopeful that I will participate in that still, mainly because I'm helping kind of coordinate it, so I should participate. I also want to briefly go over my book bingos, which I have been doing terribly at. The only book bingos that I have crossed off for nonfiction are reading about technology, health, memoir, And then a free space because I had a few nonfiction books that I could have chosen for this, so I just finally crossed it off. In terms of my Read Your Shelves challenge that I wanted to do, I have also only finished 3 of these. Bought or recommended by a friend. This was crossed off by the Kamigawa Food Detectives, Person on the cover, which was The Neighbor Favor, I believe, and Bought by Me, which was Time Shelter. Granted, I have read more physical books beyond that, but those are just the ones that actually match the prompts. So hard times over here. Those are really all the things that I'm tracking, all of my statistics so far. But now I want to talk about some of the books that I have read this year and some books that I hope to read in the second half of the year. For this, I am actually doing the questions for the celebration tag by Katie Lee Wrights on Bookstagram. This is more about celebrating the books instead of worrying about books. That's why I chose it for my mid-year check-in. The first question is the best book you've read so far this year. Probably Fish in a Tree by Lynda Mullaly Hunt. This is a middle grade book I just really love. I think this is the one book where I have never second guessed what I rated it, which was 5 stars. It's a book that I have already brought up to a lot of my friends and colleagues because I think it's a really insightful read, especially for educators or for people with younger children. It's just an amazing book. Prompt number 2 is a book that made you laugh. I chose A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandanna for this because there is a character in this, Feeney, who has these amazing one-liners that truly did make me laugh out loud. And this is a book where I do distinctly remember laughing at multiple times while reading it. Prompt number 3 is a book that made you cry. I chose How to Build a Boat by Elaine Feeney for this. This is, I think, the only book that has made me cry so far this year. It is a beautiful story of this young boy who is neurodivergent, and he struggles to make friends in school and is put into a Catholic school where he runs into some problems with the rigidity of this type of program, but he ends up forming kind of a found family who help him build a boat. This is not a plot heavy book. It is all about the characters, and the characters in this are so lovely. There were multiple parts in this book that I cried because there were different aspects to it that I could understand or relate to that were just really touching. I will say specifically the final chapter of this book, I listened to it twice and sobbed in both listenings of them. It really blew me away. I would highly recommend the audiobook for this one as well because the writing is very poetic. This was a book club read where many people who said they read the physical book kind of struggled with the narration style, whereas in the audiobook it was much more seamless and you could really understand the rhythm to the speech, and I think that is a really important part of this story. The next prompt is favorite new character. For this I chose Lily from The Neighbor Favor. I really resonated with her, especially because she was questioning these career changes and where she was in her life and the kind of expectations of where she felt like she should be versus where she was, and then her family's expectations and the way that they kind of meddle in her life. I really appreciated just how raw and realistic she felt as a character. I think that Kristina Forrest is really good in writing relatable characters, and I am really hoping to return to this series soon because I would love to follow along with the next 2 sisters. My answer for that one kind of also ties into the next prompt, which is favorite new to me author. Because of what I said in the last prompt, I'm gonna say Kristina Forrest. I really enjoy her character work, especially in a romance. I think that's something that is constantly really hard to strike a balance between a story that is engaging and fun and romantic, but also shows the kind of internal struggles of characters and struggles in a relationship. Because I do think that the struggles she wrote in the relationship between Nick and Lily were very much realistic and not just an arbitrary conflict that didn't feel necessary to the story. The next question is a favorite book by a debut author, and I chose a poet who I believe their book will have come out by the time that this video comes out. This is Lenna Jawdat, who wrote 70,000. This has been one of my favorite poetry collections that I read this year. I think her poetry style, it's more experimental, it's more of forcing the reader to do some work, and I really liked that. The themes that she explores in this collection, where she's ruminating on the 70,000 books that were taken during the Nakba from Palestinian libraries, I believe also universities, is something that a lot of people really would not know that much about, yet it's an important part of history that also has ramifications and effects in today's world, and you can clearly see the connections, and you know the kinds of ways that this singular event represents so many other events and so much broader history to it. The next prompt is biggest disappointment. For me, this was definitely by B.K. Borison. Maybe this was me being naive because the plot did sound like a Hallmark movie, but I thought it looked so cute. The concept sounded so interesting. I will say the narrator of the audiobook sounded amazing. The male narrator, he sounded truly beautiful. So that was great for me personally. However, the story was garbage. There was no world building. There was no character growth, no relationship development. I think that there was not enough development of anything in this book. And the more that I have thought about this book since finishing it, the more I have disliked this. There is a part of me that I think now realizes I only finished this book because I disliked it so much and I wanted more things to complain about, which is not great. Truly, this was so incredibly disappointing to me. I just don't think there was any substance to this book at all. Not even in the sense of it being a fun, sexy romance, because I couldn't care less about these two people and I didn't understand why they liked each other. The silver lining to this is that I almost bought a physical copy when I was on a trip this past year because I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen this in Turkey. I am now so glad that I saved the money on that because I did get it on sale on Libro FM for like $3. So, you know, small miracles over here. Then I'm asked my biggest surprise, which was Notes of a Crocodile by Miaojin, and this was translated by Bonnie Huie. I didn't really know anything about it before going into it, except that it was a queer classic that was written in the 90s when I believe homosexuality was still illegal in Taiwan. I wanted to read it mainly because it was a non-Western classic that was queer and I'm trying to read a wider variety of classics. I was pleasantly surprised by this one because I really could not have anticipated how obsessed I became with this book after finishing it. I cannot for the life of me understand why more people are not talking about this book, because it's not only interesting in terms of the writing style, but also the inspiration that was taken from independent filmmaking was so fascinating to me. The actual creation of the book and then the way that it's written, the story that it's telling, the allegorical elements that you can analyze in a variety of different ways were just so incredibly cool to me. I mean, this was a book that I started reading academic essays, like analyzing and contextualizing different parts of the book. I truly became obsessed with this. Like, this book made me want to watch a specific filmmaker's movies just to see if I could find the elements that she used as inspiration for certain parts of the book. Yeah, it was surprising to me how obsessed I became with it, and also how there are so few people that I know that have read this, and I think that that is really unfortunate because it's a really fundamentally interesting book. After my raving there, I will tone it in to talk about my most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. I have a few books that are by authors I've read from before that I'm pretty excited about. The first one being Espíritu by Aiden Thomas. This is the sequel to Cemetery Boy, one of my favorite books of all time. Now, I am very sad because this will come out after I leave the US and I've never seen either of his books available here. So I may end up consuming this one via audiobook from the library or Libro FM. Regardless, I have to read it because I love their writing, I love their characters, and I am so excited that we are returning to this world together. Similarly, Franny Choi, who's a poet that I've read from before, she has an essay collection that's coming out that's called We Radiant Things, and this sounds fascinating to me because it's about the kind of cyborgification and other representation of Asian women within science fiction. I have recently delved into both science fiction movie watching and also science fiction like reading in the past couple of years. I have noticed this as well in a couple of things that I have consumed during that time. So I'm very curious to read her kind of reflections on this. Another poet, this one who is coming out with a collection this year, is Fatimah Asghar, one of my top favorite poets to ever exist. And I'm especially excited because the collection, I believe, is solely focused on reflecting complicated relationships with faith. So it seems like it's right up my alley, looking at themes that I really enjoy exploring in poetry and reading in general. The last one that's an anticipated release for the second half of the year is from an author I haven't read from before, and it's a genre that I don't really read from, but this book sounds too intriguing to pass up. It's called Our Cut of Salt by Deena Helm. This is about a house and a family over 3 generations who are Palestinian. It's taking this fact of many Palestinian families wearing the keys to their houses that are in Palestine that have been forcibly taken from them, and now there are settlers that are living in these places. I believe it's taking that concept and turning it into a horror story, and that sounds so original and really like something that I think I could handle in horror, because I am very hit or miss with like certain horror topics, but I am definitely willing to give this one a go. The next prompt is new release you haven't read yet. So these are books that came out in the first half of 2026. The first one is because since reading Time Shelter, I am so curious about Bulgarian authors. And so this one is called She Made Herself a Monster by Anna Kovacheva. This is a Bulgarian vampire book. Need we say more? Also, amazing cover. 2 great reasons to read. Then I have another book by an author I've talked about probably too much in this video, and that is The Summer Girlfriend by Kristina Forrest. Another one with such a good cover. I am kind of committed to just picking up Kristina Forrest's books because she wrote them. So I don't need to know anything other than that there is a girlfriend for a summer, I'm assuming. I don't even know for sure if that's accurate. Similarly, another romance that I want to pick up just based on vibes here is By the Bootstraps by Alexa Martin, because I am desperate for another cowboy romance. But I want cowboy romances that are doing something new, and I believe that this one is about a like all black ranch that is operating in, I think, Texas or something like that. And I want that story, absolutely. The next one is much more serious than the last book, and I do feel like I need to give a tone shift for that because it's a nonfiction book that is about a really devastating situation, and it is London Falling by Patrick Redden Keith. This is about a young British man who died under mysterious circumstances. Due to his death, his family found out that he was essentially living this incredibly different, like, false life where he was pretending to be a Russian oligarch's son. This led them down a spiral as to what exactly their son was involved in, and did these things contribute to his death. I am familiar with like some details from this here and there, just over like exposure to hearing about this story, but I do kind of want to see what is maybe fact or fiction from what I've already previously read, because I do believe that this author has done extensive research on this, so I kind of trust that they are a little bit more, you know, in tune with what exactly is true or not than I would be as like an outsider. And the last book I have for this one is Light and Thread by Han Kang. This is an essay collection. I love Han Kang. I've wanted to read everything she's ever written. And of course, I'm going to read this too. I actually have an ebook of this already, so I should probably read it, but I could say that for a lot of books, as you heard me say at the beginning of this video. So the second to last prompt is a book you want to read by the end of the year. I am prioritizing for this question series that I want to finish because there are so incredibly many. I want to finish Empire of Gold, the last book that I have in the Daevabad trilogy. I want to finish The Winners, the last book I have in the Beartown trilogy. I need to finish 2 more books from Kristina Forrest to finish the Green Sisters trilogy. I'm realizing these are a lot of trilogies. And I would like to finish the Thursday Murder Club series this year because I think the 5th book just came out. So realistically, there should not be a 6th book for like another year. So I could theoretically catch up on all of those this year. That may be an ambitious plan though with my mood reading. And the last prompt of this tag is actually a favorite purchase from this year. I realized
I have not physically purchased any books this year.
I have purchased many digitally, but I kind of want to change this to books that I would like to purchase this year because I am going to the US this summer to visit family and friends. I have been planning for the past year what books I would like to purchase while there, because the criteria is a book that I cannot find at the library either here or digitally with my library in the US, a book that's not very popular so it wouldn't make it to the few English bookstores that are in the big city that I visit like once a year. So most of these are actually poetry collections because they're ones that are harder to find. The first one is Poor by Caleb Feeney. I actually had an arc of this and I was loving it, but I ran out of time to finish it and I knew that I was going to want to purchase it, so I didn't feel, oh, I need to rush to try to finish this now. The next one is The Afterlife of Sweetness. This is by Jaya Hamid Bashir. This has a stunning cover. I truly would like a poster of this to add to my little wall over here because it's beautiful. And the last poetry collection is Heirloom by Catherine Esther Cowie. This is another one with an absolutely beautiful cover. I don't know if I will buy this one via ebook or physical copy. It might depend on the shipping availability because I definitely want it, but there are a little more options for this. And the last book I want to purchase while I'm back home is actually a short story collection, and that is Small Scale Sinners by Mahrain Sohail. I almost bought it during a trip a few months ago, and I have regretted it ever since because I have not been able to stop thinking about this beautiful cover, and it has pretty good ratings. So I'm gonna get it this time. That concludes both my mid-year check-in and also my answers for the celebration tag. I would love to hear about how your reading year is going so far, if you've read any of these books or if you want to read any of these books. I'd love to discuss them more, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Happy reading. Bye.